This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides, so head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more. Welcome to Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange, the podcast of me, Sarah Raven, and today I am joined by an old friend who I was brought up with, the really internationally famous and genius garden designer, Tom Stuart-Smith.
Oh, don't lay it on too thick, Sarah. Or I'll play the same tricks on you.
I can lay it on very thick. So the reason that Tom is here today is that we're going to hear all about his garden at Chelsea. So this is going to come out over Chelsea time. And I literally know nothing. And so I'm going to rely on Tom to tell us all about it, why he's done it, what the themes are, where it's going to go, all that kind of stuff, Tom, if that's all right.
Great, yeah.
Good. So off we shoot. What's the theme?
Well, the garden is about Tate, about the garden we're making at Tate Britain, which is pretty thrilling. It's a garden that a lot of people, when I say I'm making a garden at Tate Britain, they say, where at Tate Britain? There isn't anywhere. Amazingly, there's an acre and a half of ground between the gallery and Millbank. But because it's so dull and dreary, people just simply don't register that it's there. It's a kind of, we talk about plant blindness. This is really a kind of case of space blindness.
That's amazing.
And we're changing, at the moment, it's about 75% hard surface. It has lots of concrete and it's really seen better days. I mean, it wasn't a bad layout of its sort when it was done 20 years ago, but it really does look pretty sad now. And we're changing it into a really sort of biodiverse, very exotic garden. And it's very nice. It's pretty much entirely funded by Vivian Duffield, so Claude Duffield. It's a collaboration with the RHS, so they're very much involved in the ongoing sort of interpretation and education in collaboration with Tate. So it's very nice these two behemoths sort of being brought together and working together. And it'll open in spring next year, so sort of February time next year. Started on site already. And it's an unusual garden to do it at Tate. I mean, this was something that Dame Vivian really wanted to do. And the real challenge for me, is that it's all retro designed. So everything we're doing in the garden is stuff that will go to Tate and be incorporated in the garden there. That doesn't actually mean that the garden I'm doing at Chelsea will look like the one at Tate at all, because the scale is, the scale of an acre and a half garden is so completely different from the bijou little corners we have at Chelsea. So I'm reconfiguring everything to make a garden that kind of works for Chelsea. So, for instance, we have this water feature. I rather hate that expression, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Which is designed to run down a slope at Tate, because in the garden at Tate, we're taking out all the steps and ramps. I don't know if some of your listeners might know the garden at Tate at the moment, and it's full of retaining walls and little steps with handrails and disabled access places and so on. We're taking all that out, so it's all freely accessible. And that involves having shallow ramps. And we wanted to sort of enliven one of the main areas where you go down onto the sort of cafe terrace outside the Tate. So it's going to have this beautiful terrace where people can sit and drink coffee and have a sandwich and look at great works of art in a garden, which is rather, that excites me. I don't know about you, but whenever I go to a gallery, the first thing I start thinking about is, where am I going to get my coffee hit? And going down this slope is going to be these dishes, shallow dishes, about a foot wide, so just like plates with jets in the middle, that then run down these narrow rills, which you can walk over, and then collect in a big shallow basin, which is about 6 feet across, which again is very, very shallow. It'll look like bronze, but actually it's steel that's heated, so it goes a sort of golden colour. And it has to be accurate to within a millimetre, both in its profile and its curve and everything, because otherwise we can't, reuse it at Tate. So that's been made by Factor Mate. I don't know if you've come across them. Amazing, amazing people. They made, for instance, the Diplodocus, fern outside the Natural History Museum. And I've worked with Adam, who runs it, for years and years and years. And I love collaborating with them. They're one of those people, those wonderful people you work with, who, when you say, I want to do this, they say, yeah, great, we'll do it, And things like, I have to say, things like sort of cost and practicality, are things that you put to one side a little bit, because it's just such a great thing to do, and you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
We know that position rather well, don't we?
Marvellous.
Yes.
God, it all sounds so much. So lots and lots of water, and also lots of sound.
Very subtle water.
Yeah, sound.
Very subtle water. The rill is only 1.5 inches wide. So it's very much something you'd play mini poo sticks with, as opposed to big poo sticks. I would say the thing that people are really going to recognise about the garden, or see about the garden, is that it is very bold texturally, because we're using all these plants that you don't normally see so much in Britain. And this is because this extraordinary site right down by the Thames, virtually frost-free. So we're having huge cycads, lagostromias. Do you know a tree called Melia azedarac? You might know it from your Mediterranean travels. It's a Persian lilac. There's one decent one in London, on St Leonard's Terrace. And every time I go to the Chelsea Flower Show, which, as you know, is quite often, I go and have a look at it. And last year, which was quite a warm spring, it was in flower. So I live in hope. But I have to say, as we are recording this, 3.5 weeks before the opening of Chelsea, it hasn't even got a single leaf on it. So
No, but it will. And what colour is the flower? It's
a sort of lilac-y. Yeah, it's very beautiful close up. I have to say, when you see them on the other side of a street in somewhere like Seville, you think, oh, that's sort of nice, but a little bit dowdy, perhaps.
Yes, yeah. I think I know what you mean. Yeah,
beautiful,
absolutely.
pinnate foliage, and one of these trees we're going to see many, many more of in London. Then we have big magnolias and pistachia, the pistachia lentiscus.
Yes.
I love pistachia lentiscus. Yes. And we find that now quite hardy here in our garden in the barn. Sometimes gets a bit burnished by cold winter, but myrtles, melianthus.
Yes, I love myrtle.
Yeah, I mean, trichodendrons, very, very, very exotic, big scheffleras, all this kind of stuff.
Wow. And in your RA, that wonderful yard that you made at the Royal Academy, where you've got your Dixonias, are you going to have them in the shady bits or not?
We're not going to have. Well, we will at Tate, not at Chelsea. I'll tell you a story about those. And when that was opened, the Duke of Edinburgh. I mean, this is sort of pouring shame all over my head kind of thing, which I'm normally very good at. And he came up, and I was standing sort of, as you do with those visits, sort of feeling like a bit of a prune. And he said, so where do these come from? So I said, well, Australia, Tasmania, sir, I think. Shouldn't happen, he said, and turned around and walked away.
Oh,
and so his argument was about biosecurity, and he had a point.
Yes. No, a friend of mine said the same thing with a pelargonium that he'd nicked as a cutting in Morocco and brought back, and he was told off by the king when he gave it to him as a present, and exactly the same thing, which is
flat. Yeah.
Anyway, so underneath the sort of treescape, what's going on? The sort of more shrub and perennials level.
So we have a sort of understory of interesting shrubs. So some of the big euphorbias like mellifera and pastorae, and wonderful scheffleras. I don't know if you know Schefflera davidi, which is an amazing sort of big-leafed schefflera, which forms a spreading shrub as opposed to taiwanensis, which is the one you see more often, which is a more tall, elegant thing. Then we have aspidistras for those dark, shady spots. No, I can't bear the spotty ones, but the plain Aspidistra elatior for the darkest. They literally don't want any light at all.
Is that right? Gosh, I didn't realise that.
I mean, for the darkest, most miserable spot you can find in a relatively frost-free environment, Aspidistras are pretty amazing. And they're tremendously smart-looking things. Some hedychiums, I mean, for instance, hedychium forestiae keeps most of its leaves through the winter, so that looks...
By the way, everyone, I'm going to interrupt Tom and say that we will try and put pictures on the website of these things because they're not such well-known
No, they're not so
plants.
usual. Yeah.
Yeah, but so we'll try and do that as much as we can.
Farfugium japonicum, very exotic.
Gosh.
And then some things which are more usual. Well, actually, then I'm going to say restios. Most people don't grow restios.
No.
And then nice ferns like Cotomium fulcatum, the holly-leafed, very glossy holly-leaf fern.
The evergreen one. Yeah.
It's not going to have a huge amount of flower. I've got quite a lot of Salvia convertiflora, which I completely love, which is just coming into flower now. So I think that would be really amazing.
That's with the red one, isn't it?
It's sort of almost vermilion kind of spikes.
And those very indented
beautiful leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the reason for this is that the garden is in some ways a sculpture garden. And it's very, very exciting that we have this Barbara Hepworth bicentric form, which is a sort of abstracted, you could say, female form. It's beautiful, dark, almost black limestone. It's the first time that a sculpture from a national collection has been shown in a garden at Chelsea. So I feel pretty privileged on that front.
Wow.
And so I've always had a little bit of an allergy about sculpture and flowers. So that's why I'm really toning it down.
Okay.
So it will not be a very flowery garden. But I like that. I mean, it's just...
I know you're well known for that,
I love flowers. And I and when I come to somewhere like Perch Hill, which is a sort of flower kingdom or queendom, I sort of, I faint. I'd have a Stendhalian moment and think... but I also do love, doing it without... I mean, actually, the garden here is full of tulips and camassias and everything like that at the moment. It's completely wonderful. But there is something lovely about just calming things down a bit. And that's also partly a response to the flower show, which often does tend to be a little bit OTT. And to have a little moment of green sanity is often a nice thing.
And also not to have to force things either back or forward. And so just to go with the natural shape of the plant, both in terms of its structure, but also its life cycle is a nice thing. I mean, I imagine you're not having to do too much fridge action. No
fridge action, but quite a lot of polytunnel action, as you can imagine. I mean, that's partly to protect things. So, we're not going to get the Salvia convertiflora into flower outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, of course, there is this... You just do have much more control if you bring things on undercover. Yeah. But I mean, here last night, there was 1 degree of frost. I don't know about you.
Yes. Same.
I'm glad to hear that at Crocus, where we've been growing the big plants, there wasn't a frost, because that could have been quite alarming.
Yes.
I remember once this was sort of 20 years ago, when weather was different and all that kind of thing. I remember we brought Cornus Cusa into flower in a greenhouse, 5 meter tall. We built a special construction for them.
Amazing.
But the idea of bringing big trees, of getting them under cover, it's just not practical.
Yeah. So which site are you on, Tom?
Somewhere halfway down Main Avenue. I don't know quite where, but I'll find out soon.
And you move on site in pretty soon with the big stuff.
Starts on site next week.
Brilliant. Well, that's very exciting. And then will things go straight on to the Tate?
Yeah. A lot of things will do. And what's rather nice, I mean, as part of this sort of circular story, that all the materials we're using on the garden, except for the stainless steel water, actually come from Tate in the first place. So, for instance, there's at the end of the garden, there's this circle of benches, which is a sort of a slightly smaller version of a we call it the teaching circle at Tate, which is a place for outdoor teaching, because they're building a whole classroom in the garden as well, and the benches are made out of all the crushed up subbase and paving from Tate.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
And all the paving in the garden is also from we've lifted it at Tate and then recut it and it's going back there. So amazingly, the garden at Tate uses very, very little new material. The big investment is in labour, not new stuff.
Yeah. And so on labour, so who's in your team? Yeah.
Well, Crocus, having said last year they were never going to do one again,
Yeah.
I sort of twisted their arm. And so they're doing the build, and they have organised, because they are actually, I persuaded Claw to get them to supply the trees for Tate. Because there are a lot of tender things, they've had to come in a year in advance for biosecurity reasons. So we brought them in from, most of them have come from Italy. So a lot of them came from this wonderful nursery, Margheriti, which is sort of, near beautiful parts of, it's near sort of Montepulciano, that kind of area.
Yes, yes.
And there's another one there called Tranquillo, where we got some lovely things from. And then various European nurseries, Solitaire, Bruns, these big Northern European nurseries. But actually, it's the first time that I've worked with Kelways on growing all the herbaceous stuff. And actually, I drove down there yesterday to have a look at everything, and it's immaculate condition.
So irises and peonies?
No irises and peonies, no. None of their sort of usual stock in trade. But I mean, they're used to growing so many different things.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I don't know whether you've ever seen, I mean, I was down there yesterday, and they're growing stuff for 4 different people. And you're always going around seeing a batch of absolutely fabulous plants, thinking, oh, whose is that?
Yeah.
Sort of a tremendous sort of plant envy.
Absolutely. I remember having a terrible fight over some black opium poppies. I think it was Carol Klein, when she had her nursery, had grown them for somebody, and I was absolutely desperate to get them. But I remember that. It's funny, isn't it? Someone else's ideas always feel better than one's own. So Tom, after Chelsea, what's happening to you and the studio? Have you got other big projects coming along?
I wanted to tell you about one other project, which, I mean, sprang on me out of the blue literally a month ago. And this was an idea to make a memorial garden for Julia Rousing, who we
fantastic.
both knew pretty well at the RHS Flower Show at Badminton. So this was cooked up between Sir Hans Rousing, and Georgia, the Duchess of Beaufort, who I'd never met before, but is an amazingly enterprising and can-do woman. And she wrote to me, and when I have to say, when I first saw the email at sort of 10 o'clock at night, my heart sank, and I thought, this is just going to blow me to bits. And then I thought, well, I can't say no, because Hans has just been, I mean, both of them, they were just so incredibly generous, both to me personally, but also to the arts in Britain. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know that name, they are probably the biggest benefactor of the arts that this country has seen for a long time. I mean, they're giving, I don't know what it is, 130 or 150 million to the National Gallery for this new
The National Gallery is amazing. That the
and
whole new wing is...
It just goes on and on and on. It's absolutely extraordinary. So we're going to make a garden that is, apparently it's the biggest garden that the RHS has ever had as a show garden, because it sits at the end of this lake at Badminton. And so it had to be big. I designed before I went there, great mistake. I sort of thought, well, what would Julia have liked? She'd have loved a little formal garden with lots of roses and stuff. So I actually designed this thing on paper. And I'm feeling very pleased with myself. I thought it looked really good. Went along there, and I thought, and they showed me the site. I thought, that's hopeless. That's not going to work. So I had to tear it up and start all over again. And so the garden is going to be like, well, the main garden is like 35 metres by 25 metres, but then it'll sit in this wildflower meadow, which is 80 metres across.
I was wondering whether there was a wildflower meadow.
Lots of wildflowers. And lime trees, which should be in flower then in July, I hope.
So which week is it in July?
So it opens on the 8th and 9th of July. So there's a little, bit of June, maybe I get to catch my breath.
Oh, Tom.
But it'll be such fun. It will be such fun. I really only had about a minute of hesitation.
Yeah. And will it, because for me, Julia, she absolutely loved her greenhouse with the fireplace. Are you going to have a greenhouse on site?
That would be a little bit too far, yeah.
I loved, she would go and have her coffee and then her gin and tonic sitting in that greenhouse.
Yes, yeah.
With wonderful trees that you put in, all rather exotic. Anyway, gosh, that's so exciting. Well, I long to come and see that. So that would be really wonderful. Thank you, Tom, very much. It's so nice to chat and hear about all your projects coming up. And Tom is coming here to do a chat about his work in the middle of June. And then We're having one of our demo dinners led by Tom, which will
that'd be fun.
a great treat for us.
Sounds scary.
Good. No, it won't be scary.
Dinner.
It'll be cosy and
Does
lovely.
that mean I have to eat and talk at the same time?
No, you do your lecture first
good.
and then everyone goes in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Lovely,
I'm
Sarah.
going to see you very soon. Thanks so much for listening to Grow Cook Eat Arrange, the podcast of me, Sarah Raven, and Tom Stuart-Smith, the wonderful designer. And next week, I'm joined by another wonderful designer, very different in flavour, and it's Arit Anderson, who, as you will all know, I'm sure, compared in contrast to Tom in a way, is known for her use of incredible colour combinations, and Tom for his sort of sculptural leaf forms and trees and less of the sort of flowery show. But next week it's Arit and the floriferous wonderfulness that is her, and the garden that she's doing for Parkinson's. And she'll talk all about that and how it's relevant to people with Parkinson's and the themes that are threaded through the garden that are really relevant to people with the disease. So join me then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.